Strange Subscriber Part 1. The first Commendalin had been making horror content on YouTube for years. His channel wasn't massive, but he had a loyal audience who loved his deep dives into creepy internet mysteries and haunted video games. Late one night, after uploading his latest video, Top 5 Cursed Websites You Should Never Visit, he noticed a strange comment. It was from a user with the name @Watcher011. The comment simply read, "I see you." Dylan smirked. Probably just a troll. He clicked on the account. No profile picture, no videos, no subscriptions, just a blank profile. Weird. Shrugging it off, he went to bed. But the next morning, there was another comment on a completely different video, posted months ago. "I see you." Part 2. The Livestream decided to ignore the strange comments. He had seen plenty of weird interactions on his channel before. After all, horror content attracted all sorts of people. Maybe it was just someone trying to mess with him. A few nights later, he scheduled a late-night live stream. His audience loved these. He would explore creepy corners of the internet, react to haunted videos, and sometimes play horror games while chatting with his viewers. The stream started as usual. The chat was lively, throwing in jokes and horror recommendations. He played through an obscure indie horror game, laughing off the cheap jump scares. Then about 40 minutes in, something weird happened. A donation alert popped up. 666 from @Watcher011. A message accompanied it. "Don't look behind you." Dylan felt an unexpected chill run down his spine. His chat immediately exploded. "WTF? That's the same dude from your comments. Bro, check your room." Dylan chuckled, nervously, playing it off. All right. Very funny, guys." He turned his webcam slightly to show the empty space behind him. "See? Nothing there." The chat calmed down, but something about the donation unsettled him. He hadn't mentioned the weird comments before. How did this person know? Brushing it off, he continued playing. Then, another donation popped up. 666 from @Watcher011. The message was different this time. "I'm getting closer." Dylan swallowed hard. His audience noticed his change in demeanor. "Dude, is this a prank? Wait, your webcam just glitched." "No joke. I think I saw something behind you." He checked his webcam feed. Nothing seemed off, except the lighting. The shadows in the corner of his room looked darker, almost as if they had shifted. Part 3. The distorted reflection. Dylan's knees grew, but he forced himself to laugh it off. Maybe it was just a dedicated troll trying to scare him. His audience was still active, filling the chat with theories and nervous jokes. He decided to switch things up and watch some creepy internet footage, his usual go-to for mid-stream engagement. He pulled up a video titled Top 10 Disturbing Live Broadcast Glitches and played it for his viewers. The compilation was full of eerie distortions, faces warping, bodies flickering, unnatural movements captured live. As one particular clip played, Dylan saw something in his own webcam feed. At first, it was subtle, a flicker, a frame skip, but then his reflection in the webcam lagged behind. For a split second, his real-time movement and his webcam feed were out of sync. When he turned his head slightly, his reflection didn't move. It just stared forward, as if frozen in time. His breath caught in his throat. Then, the reflection blinked. Dylan hadn't blinked. The chat exploded. "Bro, WTF, your reflection just moved on its own. Is this a filter?" Dylan immediately alt-tabbed to check his webcam settings. Maybe it was a software bug. Maybe his camera had frozen for a second. Another donation popped up. 666 from @Watcher011. That's not you. Dylan yanked his webcam cord out of the USB port. The feed instantly cut to black. The chat went wild. "Dude just turned off his cam. Lamau, no way that was real. Bro is actually scared." His heart pounded in his chest, but he forced himself to keep going. If he ended the stream now, it would just add fuel to the fire. He plugged the webcam back in. The feed came back up. Everything looked normal again. Sort of. The shadows in the corner of his room seemed a little darker. Part 4. The silent viewer. Dylan pushed through the rest of the stream, trying to act like nothing happened. He laughed at the chat, continued playing for another hour, then wrapped it up. But after he ended the stream, he hesitated before closing his laptop. Something about the night still felt off. Before shutting everything down, he checked his analytics. His usual viewers were there, along with a few hundred random accounts. But one name stood out. @Watcher011. They had watched the entire stream, every second. Dylan clicked on the username. The profile was still empty. No videos, no subscribers, no activity, except for one change. Under the About section, there was now a single line of text. "I see you, Dylan." His stomach dropped. He slammed his laptop shut. That night, as he lay in bed, sleep refused to come. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw his own reflection, staring back at him, blinking when he didn't. Part 5. The night visitor. Dylan finally drifted off into an uneasy sleep, but something woke him up a few hours later. A faint clicking sound. At first, he thought it was just his apartment settling old pipes, maybe the wind outside, but then he heard it again. Click, 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 like a keyboard being tapped. His laptop was still on his desk, the screen casting a dim glow across the room. But the chair in front of it was turned slightly. Dylan was sure he had left it tucked under the desk. His pulse quickened as he reached for his phone, using the flashlight to sweep across the room. Nothing, just the familiar clutter of his workspace, his camera, his mic. But then he saw the screen. His laptop was open to YouTube Studio. His latest video, the one he had streamed earlier, was paused at a random frame. His own face was on screen, but his eyes were wrong. They were looking past the camera, as if staring at something behind him. A chill crawled down his spine. Then, a notification popped up. A new comment from @Watcher011. "You left your stream on." Dylan's breath hitched. His fingers trembled as he reached for the laptop. He checked his recording software. The stream was off. He wasn't broadcasting. So what was Watcher011 talking about? His eyes darted back to the screen. The video player had buffered. The progress bar was stuck. Then, for a fraction of a second, the image glitched and his reflection on the screen smiled. Dylan shoved the laptop shut. He didn't sleep for the rest of the night. Part 6. The unlisted stream. Next morning, Dylan was running on nothing but caffeine and paranoia. He checked his channel first thing. Everything seemed normal. No weird comments. No signs of @Watcher011. Maybe he was just overreacting. Maybe it was some kind of elaborate prank. But then, as he scrolled through his video manager, he noticed something strange. An unlisted live stream from last night. His heart pounded as he clicked on it. The video loaded, showing a dimly lit view of his room. It was from his webcam, but he hadn't been streaming. The footage was grainy, distorted by occasional static. He scrubbed through the timeline. Most of it was just an empty shot of his desk and chair. Nothing happened until the 3:42 mark. That's when the chair moved. Not much, just a slight swivel. Then a shadow passed across the screen. Dylan felt his stomach drop. He leaned closer. The shadow was vague, humanoid, but wrong. The proportions were off, too tall to thin. It lingered near the edge of the frame, just outside the camera's focus. And then at 4:06, the webcam tilted slightly, like someone had touched it. Dylan slammed the laptop shut again. His hands were ice cold. He wasn't alone last night, and whoever or whatever had been watching had used his own camera to do it. Part 7. The message that wasn't sent. Dylan's hands hovered over his keyboard. His instinct told him to delete the unlisted stream, to erase whatever had recorded that footage. But another part of him hesitated. If he deleted it, would that mean he was ignoring the problem, pretending it didn't happen? His eyes darted toward the camera on his desk. It was plugged in, the tiny indicator light off, but he no longer trusted it. Taking a deep breath, he clicked on his Discord server. Maybe one of his friends had been messing with him. Maybe someone had remote access to his PC. It was the only rational explanation. He typed out a message to his mod, Jason. "Dude, I think my stream got hacked. Check this out." He pasted the link to the unlisted video and hit send, or at least, he thought he did, because the message never appeared in the chat. It was just gone, like he had never typed it at all. Dylan frowned and typed again. "Jason, you there?" Nothing. His hands were clammy as he tried again. "Hello?" Still nothing. Then, his own message window blinked. For a split second, the text he had written flashed back onto the screen, but it wasn't what he had typed. It was something else. "Stop looking." Dylan shoved his chair back so fast it nearly toppled over. His breath came in short, ragged bursts. This wasn't a prank. It wasn't a joke. Someone or something was inside his system, watching. Part 8. The live stream that shouldn't exist. Dylan didn't sleep that night. He kept his laptop closed, his webcam unplugged. He even put his phone face down, as if avoiding screens could somehow protect him. But the next day, he made a mistake. He opened YouTube. and his own face stared back at him. The top of his recommended feed was a live stream, his live stream, except he wasn't streaming. His stomach clenched as he clicked on the video. It was labeled, "Live Now," Dylan's final stream. There was no chat, no viewer count, just a grainy black and white feed of his own apartment, not from his webcam, from outside his window. Dylan's blood ran ice cold. The camera angle was slightly tilted, as if someone was holding a phone just beyond the glass. It was night, the faint glow of his laptop screen barely illuminating the room. Then something moved, a shape, a tall, thin figure standing in the corner of his room, unmoving, watching. Dylan whipped his head around, but his room was empty. He turned back to the screen. The figure hadn't moved. It was still there. Then the stream glitched. For a fraction of a second, the image distorted and the figure was closer. The screen flickered again, closer. Dylan slammed his laptop shut, his breathing sharp and shallow. This wasn't possible. This wasn't happening. But his phone vibrated. A new notification from YouTube. Your live stream has ended. Thanks for streaming. Dylan felt a scream rising in his throat, but the camera light on his laptop turned on, even though the lid was still closed. And from somewhere in the room, a soft, crackling whisper, "You're still live." Part 9. The silent call. Dylan grabbed his phone with trembling hands. His mind was racing. The live stream was fake. It had to be. A deep fake? A hacker messing with him? But then, how did they get that angle? His window. His breath hitched as he turned toward it. The blinds were closed. He hadn't opened them since the night before. Slowly, he approached. His reflection stared back at him in the faint glow of the streetlights outside. Nothing seemed out of place. Then his phone vibrated again. An unknown number. The screen just said, "Live Now." His thumb hovered over the decline button, but before he could press it, the call answered by itself. Static filled his ears. A low, garbled noise, like a voice trying to form words through a bad connection. Then a faint whisper, not from the phone, from inside his room. Dylan spun around, his heart hammering. Nothing, but the whispering continued. His phone screen flickered. The call still connected. The static shifted, resolving into something more distinct. Breathing, slow, measured, like someone was right behind him, inches away. Then a click, like a camera shutter, and the call ended. Dylan stood frozen, his breath coming in shallow gasps. His phone screen returned to normal. No record of the call, no missed calls. But then a notification popped up from YouTube. Your video is now public. Dylan's stomach dropped. What video? His fingers shook as he tapped the notification. It led to a new upload on his channel, a video he never made. The thumbnail was his window from the outside, and the title, "Let Me In." Part 10. The reflection that stayed behind. Dylan didn't click on the video. He couldn't. He didn't want to see whatever was on it. Instead, he grabbed his laptop and ripped out the battery. He turned off his phone, anything that could connect him to the internet. For the first time in years, his apartment was completely silent. No notifications, no live streams, just him. And yet, the feeling didn't go away. The feeling of being watched. He took slow, measured steps to the bathroom. He just needed to splash water on his face, breathe, calm down. He turned on the faucet. The water ran cold. He looked up at the mirror, and his reflection didn't move. Dylan's breath caught in his throat. He lifted his hand. His reflection didn't. His heartbeat pounded in his ears. Then, in the dim light, his reflection's lips curled into a grin, a slow, unnatural grin, and then it stepped away from the mirror, toward him. Dylan stumbled backward, hitting the wall. His body was still in place, but his reflection was gone. The mirror showed only an empty bathroom. His own reflection had left. But then his phone, still powered off, vibrated against the counter. A new notification from YouTube. New viewer joined. Your stream. Part 11. The new viewer. Dylan stood frozen in the bathroom. His phone was off. There was no way it could have received a notification. And yet, the screen glowed faintly in the dim light. The message was still there. New viewer joined your stream. His fingers trembled as he reached for the device. The second he touched it, the notification vanished. No record of it. No messages. No missed calls. Just a blank lock screen. His reflection was still missing from the mirror. The cold weight of dread settled in his stomach. He needed to get out of there. Now, Dylan rushed into the living room, grabbing his keys. His plan was simple: leave. Drive somewhere crowded, anywhere but here. but as he reached for the door, his laptop turned on by itself. The screen flickered to life, casting a pale glow across the darkened room. A new live stream was running. The title, He Knows. The viewer count, 1 watching. His stomach clenched. He didn't want to look, but he had to. The stream showed his apartment, a live feed from inside the room. His own back was visible on the screen, standing at the front door. Someone or something was filming him. Dylan spun around, nothing, but the stream was still going. Then the camera shifted. The angle tilted, as if the unseen cameraman was standing up, moving, getting closer. The viewer count changed. 2 watching now, then 3, 4. The number climbed. More and more viewers were joining, but Dylan wasn't streaming. Then the chat activated, and a single message appeared from an account with no profile picture. The username was just a blank space, and the message read, "Turn around." Part 12. The room with no exit. Dylan's breath hitched in his throat. He didn't turn around. Instead, he ran straight to his bedroom, slamming the door shut. He pressed his back against it, his pulse thundering in his ears. This wasn't real. It couldn't be real. His laptop was in the other room, but he could still hear the faint hum of the stream, still running, still broadcasting. His phone, despite being off, vibrated again. Another notification. This time, the screen turned on by itself, and there, in plain text, was the newest YouTube message: "You can't leave." Dylan's chest tightened. His mouth was dry. He grabbed the phone, but the moment he touched it, the screen glitched. For a split second, a new image flickered into view. A blurry, low-resolution screenshot from the live stream. A photo of his bedroom door, taken from the other side. Someone or something was standing right outside. Dylan sucked in a shaky breath, pressing his ear against the wood. Silence, then knock. Once, twice, slow, deliberate, then a whisper from the other side of the door. "We're live." Part 13. The stream won't stop. Dylan's entire body tensed. The whisper on the other side of the door wasn't just a voice. It was his voice, a perfect mimicry. Low, breathy, barely audible, but it sounded exactly like him. "We're live." Dylan gripped the door handle, holding it shut with all his strength. His heart pounded so loudly he swore it would burst. He didn't respond. He didn't breathe. Then a soft tap against the wood. Not a knock. Something dragging, a slow, deliberate movement, like nails scraping gently down the surface. Then a second voice, a whisper, but different. Not his. Someone else. "Let them see you." Dylan clenched his jaw, forcing himself to stay still. He couldn't move. He couldn't react. But then his phone screen lit up again. Another YouTube notification. "Stream is now trending." Dylan swallowed hard. He forced himself to glance at the screen. The stream was still running. The chat was exploding. Thousands of messages. People were watching, asking questions. Some were joking. Some were terrified. But then he saw a comment from a verified user, a YouTube moderator. Who started this stream? Dylan's stomach turned. He wasn't streaming. His devices were off. He wasn't even logged in. And yet the view count kept climbing. 50. Watching. 75. The chat was moving too fast to read. But then a new message pinned itself to the top. A message from his own account. "He's almost ready." Dylan's mouth went dry. Who posted that? His fingers trembled as he reached for the phone. He had to stop this. Delete his account. Shut it down. But the second he touched the screen, it changed. The stream switched to a new camera angle. It wasn't showing his room anymore. It was showing his reflection, standing in front of the bathroom mirror, except Dylan was still in his bedroom. He felt his pulse stop for just a second. Then his reflection on the screen turned its head and stared directly into the camera, not at Dylan. The viewers, the chat exploded. "Bro, how? What kind of ARG is this? Dude, he's not moving, Earl. This is not a game." Dylan barely had time to react before the reflection smiled and whispered, "Now they see me too." Part 14. The viewer count won't stop. Dylan slammed his phone onto the nightstand. His breathing was erratic. His vision blurred from the panic. He wasn't dreaming. This wasn't a prank. The stream was real. And now, his reflection wasn't his anymore. The chat kept going. Viewers kept joining. 120. Watching. 200. The numbers weren't stopping. His phone vibrated again. A new message from his own account. But he hadn't typed anything. It simply said, "Let's welcome our newest subscriber." Dylan's heart clenched. His hands went numb, and then another sound, a chime, the sound of a YouTube subscriber alert, but it didn't come from his phone. It came from inside his room. A soft, echoing notification, like a phantom sound bleeding into reality. Dylan's stomach churned. Slowly, he turned toward his laptop screen. A new alert popped up on the stream. Welcome, Dylan. His own name. His mind reeled. He tried to move, but his body wouldn't respond. His vision swam with the flashing alerts, the endless chat messages, the impossible viewer count, 500 watching. The whispers outside his bedroom door grew louder. More voices now, soft, overlapping, speaking his name. He clenched his fists, willing himself to move, and then his bedroom door creaked open. He hadn't unlocked it, he hadn't touched it, but it was opening anyway. The whispers stopped, only silence remained. Dylan's breath caught in his throat. Then, just beyond the threshold, something stepped inside. The stream lagged, the chat froze, the viewer count hit 1 million, and then the screen cut to black. Part 15. The door wasn't locked. Dylan's body refused to move. The door had been locked. He knew it had, and yet it was now slightly open. A sliver of darkness stretched into his room. Something wrong about it, like the air itself bent around whatever was standing there. His lungs burned from holding his breath. Then a footstep, soft, barely audible, but it wasn't coming from the hallway. It came from inside. Dylan's pulse slammed against his ribs. He forced himself to focus, to look. The door had opened only a few inches, but now it was wider, and he hadn't seen it move. His phone screen glowed on the nightstand, still displaying the stream. The chat had stopped. No messages, no movement, just a blank box where thousands of comments had been spamming only moments ago. And then a new notification, a message from a user named the first subscriber. It read, "Finally, we see you." Dylan felt his skin crawl. His fingers twitched. Then his phone buzzed again. Another notification. This time, it was a screenshot, the thumbnail of his own stream. But in the image, he wasn't alone in the room. Dylan swallowed a scream. The reflection from before, the one that had smiled at the viewers, was standing right behind him. Closer. The timestamp on the screenshot was live. It was happening right now. His breath turned ragged. His skin felt ice cold. He needed to move, now. But before he could, his screen glitched, and a new message appeared. It wasn't typed. It was spoken, through his speakers. "Don't turn around." Part 16. The first subscriber. Dylan's throat closed up. His entire body screamed for him to run, but something wouldn't let him. His muscles locked. His limbs felt detached, like they weren't his anymore. The phone screen flickered again. The chat reappeared, but different. No longer messages from viewers. Now, every message was the same. "Look behind you," it repeated. Again, over and over, thousands of times. "Look behind you. Look behind you. Look behind you." Dylan squeezed his eyes shut. He wouldn't. The air in his room grew thick, heavy. Something was in here with him, watching, waiting. Then another alert. A new subscriber. It appeared in a distorted, stretched out font at the top of the stream. "The first subscriber has joined." A cold, sinking feeling spread through Dylan's chest. He didn't recognize that name. He clicked on the profile. It had no videos, no followers, just one single description in the bio. "I was here before you." Dylan's fingers trembled. He tried to exit the page, to close everything, but the stream wouldn't shut off. The chat messages kept repeating, "Look behind you." Then a low exhale, right next to his ear. His stomach dropped. That wasn't the speakers, that was real. And then his webcam turned on. He saw himself on the stream, and behind him a figure. No features, no face, just a shifting shadow, its head tilted at an unnatural angle, standing right over his shoulder. The breathing grew louder. Dylan's pulse exploded. He ripped the phone from the charger, bolted for the door, but the second he touched the handle, it slammed shut. Part 17. No way out sound was deafening. The force of the door slamming sent a shock through Dylan's body, rattling his bones. The lights flickered. His screen glitched again, and then a new message appeared. But this time, it wasn't on the stream. It was on his wall. Black letters, scrawled across the surface like something had burned them into the paint. "The first subscriber is waiting." Dylan staggered backward, his breath shallow and uneven. He turned toward the computer screen, his mind racing. He had to stop this, had to end the stream. But when he looked back at the webcam feed, his reflection was gone. The chair was empty, but he was still sitting in it. A cold wave of nausea hit him. He reached for his keyboard, trying anything, Control-Alt-Delete, power button, anything. But the laptop screen went black. A moment of silence, then a whisper from the speakers. Not his voice, not even human. The stream doesn't end until you say it. Dylan's breath hitched. His throat tightened. Say what? He whispered. The screen flickered back on, and for the first time, the chat had changed. Only one message remained, pinned at the top, a message from his own account. Welcome to the stream. Dylan's pulse stopped. His fingers shook over the keyboard, and then his webcam light blinked. A notification popped up. You're now live. His mind reeled. No, he wasn't. But the viewer count, it was climbing again. 100, watching 300, 500, His heart pounded in his ears. Then a final message appeared. Not from him, not from anyone in the chat, but from the system itself. Congratulations. The first subscriber is here. And then the lights went out. Part 18. The stream that never ends. Dylan's breathing was ragged. The room was completely dark, except for the glow of his screen. The viewer count kept climbing. 700,000 watching, 1 million. But there was no chat, no comments, no emotes, just silence. And then a voice, not through his speakers, not in his head, right next to him. We've been waiting. Dylan's stomach twisted. The air grew thick, pressing down on him, making it hard to breathe. He had to. And then the screen changed. It wasn't showing his room anymore. It was showing someone else's, a different setup, a different chair, a different streamer, a guy Dylan didn't recognize. He was sitting frozen, staring at his screen just like Dylan, and behind him a shadow, watching, waiting. The stream timer in the corner glitched. It wasn't counting up. It was counting down. 300, 2900, 28A. Countdown to something. Dylan tried to move, tried to shut it off, but his hands wouldn't listen. And then the other streamer moved, not naturally, jerkily, like a puppet. His eyes snapped open, his mouth moved, but his voice wasn't his own. Say it. Dylan's pulse hammered in his ears. Say what? He croaked. The streamer on screen tilted his head at an unnatural angle. Say it. The countdown hit 000, 10, 00, 09. The shadow behind the streamer started moving. Dylan's breath caught in his throat. 05. His own screen glitched. The camera flickered back to him, and now something was behind him. 2. Watching, waiting. The timer hit 0001, and then the stream cut to black. Part 19. The first subscriber speaks. Silence. Then a whisper. Not in the room. Not through his speakers. In his headphones. He hadn't been wearing them, but now they were on his ears, and the voice was inside them. Welcome to the community, Dylan. His blood turned to ice. He tore the headphones off, his chest rising and falling in panicked gasps. But the voice didn't stop. It was inside his head now. His phone buzzed, a new notification. His stream was still running, but the title had changed. It no longer said Late Night Horror Stream with Dylan. Now it said, You're one of us now. His hands trembled as he reached for his mouse. He tried to shut it off again, but a pop-up window appeared. Error. You cannot leave. His heart pounded against his ribs. Then a new chat message, pinned at the top, from the first subscriber. We see you. Dylan's stomach twisted. He looked at his webcam feed, and for the first time, he saw it, his own reflection, standing outside his window, smiling. And then it knocked. Once, twice, 3 times. Dylan's screen glitched, and the stream cut off, but the knocking, it didn't stop. Part 20. The knock that never ends. Dylan sat frozen in his chair. The knocking didn't stop. It was steady, measured, like a signal. His phone vibrated. Again, another notification. His chat was back, but now there was only one username flooding the screen, the first subscriber, and they were typing the same message, over and over. Let us in. Dylan's pulse pounded in his ears. He turned slowly toward the window. The reflection was still there, but now there were more. Figures pressed against the glass, distorted faces, hollow eyes, mouths that weren't smiling anymore. They were open, screaming, but no sound came through. His breath came fast, uneven. His computer screen flickered. A new window opened, a live video feed, not of his room, not of his window, but of his front door. The knocking changed. It was coming from there now. Dylan swallowed hard. His throat was dry. His phone buzzed again. Another notification. A new message. Go to the door, Dylan. He shook his head, whispering, no, 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 but his body was moving. Not by choice. His legs felt heavy, like something was pulling him forward. Step by step. The knocking grew louder, more urgent, frenzied. His shaky fingers reached for the doorknob, and then the knocking stopped. Silence. Dylan hesitated. His heart was hammering. He took a slow breath and turned the handle. The door creaked open. Nothing. The hallway was empty. And no one was there. But then his phone buzzed again. His hands shook as he lifted it. A new message. Look down. Dylan's stomach twisted. He didn't want to, but something made him. And when he did, his breath caught in his throat. A box, plain, small, sitting on his doorstep, and written across the top his username. Dylan stepped back, shaking his head. No, this wasn't real. But the screen on his phone flickered. A new notification. Open it, Dylan. His hands wouldn't stop shaking. His breathing was too fast, but he had to know. He crouched down, slowly. His fingers trembled as he lifted the lid, and inside a camera, old, dusty, pointed directly at him. And the screen, it was already on, already recording. And Dylan saw himself from behind. Something was standing right behind him, watching. And then the feed cut to black. Part 21. The camera never leased. The screen stayed black. Dylan's breath came in ragged gasps. He dropped the camera, stumbling backward into his apartment. This isn't real. This isn't real. But the phone in his hand vibrated again. A new message. Why did you drop it, Dylan? His fingers trembled as he looked down. The camera was still on. The lens was facing him. And on the small, flickering screen, the feed had returned. It was showing him, his face, his wide, terrified eyes, and right behind him a figure, not a shadow, not a trick of the light, something real, something standing in his apartment. His mind screamed at him to move, to run, but he couldn't, because the figure, it was moving first, not lunging, not attacking, just leaning closer, closer. Its face never fully visible, just the vague outline of a mouth, and then it spoke, not out loud, not in his head, but from his phone. A new notification, the words typed out on the screen. Smile for the camera, Dylan. And then the screen glitched. For a moment, it was just static. Then the live feed returned, but Dylan was gone. The apartment was empty. The camera lay motionless on the floor, and the phone in his hand wasn't in his hand anymore. It was on the floor too. Recording, streaming. A new chat window appeared on his laptop. The first subscriber had typed something new, just 2 words. We begin. And then the stream ended. Part 22. The stream that never stopped. The next morning, Dylan's channel was still active, but something was wrong. His past streams all gone, every video, every clip, like they had never existed. Except one, a new live stream, had started. But Dylan wasn't the one hosting it. Thousands of viewers flooded in. The screen was pitch black. Then, after a long, painful silence, the video feed flickered on. It wasn't Dylan's apartment anymore. It was a room, empty, dark, except for a single chair. And sitting in that chair, a figure, motionless, back turned to the camera. The chat exploded. Is that Dylan? Bro? What is this? Hello? Say something. But the figure didn't move. Not at first. Then the head twitched. A small, unnatural jerk. The shoulders rose and fell, like whoever or whatever was in that chair was breathing. And then finally it spoke, not with words, but through the chat. A single message appeared on the screen. I see you. And then the stream cut to static. For 3 full minutes, nothing but white noise filled the screen. Then, suddenly the feed returned. The chair was empty, but now the camera was moving, like someone was carrying it. The angle shifted, slowly turning toward a door that looked familiar. Too familiar, because it was Dylan's front door. The chat lost its mind. Wait, WF, that's his house. Who's holding the camera? The camera kept moving, step by step, toward the door, and then the screen cut to black. The stream was still live, but now, the only thing on screen was a single message, typed in a glitching, distorted font. Let us in. And then the knocking started again. Part 23. The door between worlds. The knocking didn't stop. Rhythmic, insistent. Boom, boom, boom. Dylan's apartment was silent except for that sound. The stream was still live, but Dylan wasn't there. At least, that's what everyone assumed. The camera feed remained black. The only visible thing on the screen was the last message. Let us in. The chat was going insane. Hello? Is this a joke? Dylan. Answer bro, WTF, call the cops. Then the black screen flickered, just for a moment, long enough to reveal a still image. Something was in the frame, something that looked like a handprint, pressed against the inside of the lens. But it wasn't a normal handprint. It was too long, the fingers too stretched, and the longer the viewers stared at it, the more they realized there was something behind it. A face, or at least what should have been a face. But it had no features, just a blank, pale shape, pressing closer. And then, all at once, the screen glitched again. Static, distorted pixels. Then the feed returned. The camera was back in Dylan's apartment, but this time it was pointed at the door. The knocking had stopped. Instead, the door handle was turning, slowly, deliberately. Click, the lock gave way. The door creaked open just an inch. The viewers held their breath. Nothing moved. Then a shadow slipped through the gap. Not a person, not even a shape, just darkness, pouring into the room like liquid night. The chat exploded. WHAT, the hell is that? Stop, 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 Dylan, run. But Dylan wasn't there, or at least not the Dylan they knew, because as the door swung open fully, the camera tilted, and standing just beyond the threshold was him, Dylan. But his eyes were wrong, completely black, mouth slightly parted, lips moving but no sound came out. Then, after a long, unbearable pause, his phone screen lit up in his hand. A new notification from the first subscriber. The message read, "Say hello to them, Dylan." And then Dylan smiled, but not at the camera. Something behind it. Part 24. The new host screen cut to static. The knocking was gone. The door was wide open, and Dylan had stepped inside, or at least something that looked like Dylan. The chat was going insane. That's not him. Stop the stream. WTF, call someone please. But the stream didn't end. If anything, it became clearer. As if whatever was running it wanted them to see. Dylan's movements weren't normal, too smooth, like a puppet on invisible strings. He walked to his desk, sat down, and placed his hands on the keyboard. His eyes never blinked. The chat kept flooding in, but he didn't react. Then a new message appeared on screen, typed in real time, but Dylan's fingers weren't moving. "Thank you for waiting." The chat froze. Then another message. "The stream will continue shortly." Part 25. The countdown begins. Scheduled live stream remained in touch. No new messages. No updates. Just a simple notification. Live in 24 hours. Dylan's followers couldn't ignore it. Some were terrified. Others thought it was an elaborate prank. But deep down, every single one of them felt the same thing. Something was wrong, because no one could reach Dylan. Not his friends, not his family, not even the police. It was as if he had vanished. And yet the countdown continued. The hours ticked by. People started watching his channel like it was a crime scene, trying to piece together what had happened. And then, at exactly 11:59 p.m., something changed. The title of the stream updated, right in front of everyone's eyes. It now read, "Are you ready?" The chat exploded. "Who's doing this? Dylan, is this you? Stop playing with us, WTF." But no one had control. The clock hit midnight, and the stream went live. But the screen was completely black. A single sound played through the speakers, breathing, slow, deliberate, like someone was watching. Then, a faint light appeared, a dim, flickering glow. It illuminated something. A room, small, bare. A camera sat in the center, facing a single wooden chair. The chair was occupied by Dylan, or at least what used to be Dylan. His head was tilted down, his hair obscuring his face. His hands rested on his knees, fingers twitching ever so slightly. The chat went wild. "Dylan, say something, bro. WHAT is this?" But he didn't move. He just sat there, still, silent. Then a new message appeared on the screen, typed in real time. "We've been waiting." Dylan's head twitched just slightly, like a puppet being pulled by unseen strings. Another message appeared. "Say hello, Dylan." His mouth twitched. Then slowly he lifted his head. His face was wrong, pale, expressionless, his eyes completely black, a deep, hollow void where life had once been. And then, in a voice that was both his and not his at all, he spoke. "Are you watching?" The screen glitched violently. For a split second, the camera zoomed in on his face. But it wasn't just Dylan anymore. There were others, shapes, shadows, figures standing behind him. No details, no faces, just watching. The screen glitched again, more violently this time. The lights in the room flickered. Dylan's body jerked, like something inside him was trying to get out, and then the breathing returned. But this time it wasn't just his. There were others, and they were getting closer. The chat was in chaos. WHAT, the hell is happening? Dylan, get out of there, shut this down. WTF, but Dylan just smiled. And then, in that same distorted, hollow voice, he whispered, "You're next." The screen cut to black, and the stream ended. Part 26. The aftermath. The stream had ended, but the fear had just begun. The moment Dylan's screen went black, his entire channel disappeared. Not just the video, not just the live stream, everything. His subscribers refreshed the page, over and over. But Dylan's name, his content, his existence on the platform was gone. It was as if he had never been there. His most loyal fans immediately turned to social media, Reddit, Twitter, Discord. Posts flooded in. Did anyone record that? Where is Dylan's channel? Guys, this is not normal. I saw something in the video. Not just Dylan, something else. Screenshots started circulating. Blurry images of his black, hollow eyes, the shadowy figures behind him. The final message, "You're next." And then something even stranger happened. Random users, ones who had watched the stream, began receiving messages. Not from Dylan, not from his mods, from an unknown account. The username was just a series of numbers. Each message was identical. "You watched. Now we're watching you." People thought it was a joke, until they checked their cameras, until they noticed their PC lights blinking at night, until they heard breathing in their own rooms. And then they started disappearing too, one by one, just like Dylan. Part 27. The last account standing. Days passed. Dylan's friends tried everything, calling, searching, even filing missing persons reports. But no one could find him. His apartment? Empty. His phone? Disconnected. His belongings? Left untouched. Except for one thing. His computer. It was still there, still on. The screen was black, but the webcam light was blinking. Someone or something was still using it. Dylan's closest friend, Mark, was the only one brave enough to investigate. He logged onto Dylan's PC. Everything looked normal at first, until he checked the live recording folder. There was a single new video, a recording from Dylan's webcam, time-stamped the night of the live stream. Mark hesitated, then clicked play. The screen was completely dark, but there was sound, breathing, then a voice, a whisper. "You shouldn't have come here." Mark's blood ran cold. The darkness on the screen shifted. A faint glow appeared, illuminating Dylan's chair, and in it someone was sitting. Not Dylan, something else. It turned just slightly toward the camera. A smile stretched across its face, and then it spoke again. But this time it said Mark's name. It knew. The video glitched violently. The screen filled with distorted faces, watching, staring, waiting, and then the screen went black, and the recording ended. Mark sat there frozen. Then his screen flickered. A new message appeared, typed in real time, "You're next." Mark spun around, but there was no one there, just his empty room, his silent apartment. But then he heard it, breathing, right behind him, and before he could move, the screen went black, and his computer shut itself off. Part 28. The last message. Mark stared at his screen, heart hammering in his chest. The message had disappeared. His computer was off, but the webcam light was still on. He knew what that meant. Something was watching him. He reached out slowly, pressing the power button on his PC. The moment the screen flickered back to life, a new window was open. A live stream. His own face stared back at him, but with a delay. No, not a delay, a difference. His reflection was smiling. He wasn't. Mark swallowed hard. His mouse refused to move. His keyboard was unresponsive. The chat was active, but he wasn't streaming. Thousands of people were watching. The messages flooded in. "WTF is this? Mark? Are you okay? Bro, your reflection is moving on its own." He wanted to scream, but his throat was dry. His reflection's head tilted farther than humanly possible. The mouth stretched, forming a grin too wide. Then it spoke. "You found him. Now we found you." Mark shoved himself away from the desk. His chair tipped over. The live stream screen glitched violently. The chat was going insane. "Run, Mark, run. What the hell is that thing? It's getting closer." The reflection stood up, but Mark hadn't moved. His stomach twisted. His reflection was no longer a reflection. It was something else. It stepped forward. out of the screen, into the room. The webcam feed didn't change. The viewers could still see Mark sitting there paralyzed. But now, behind him, something was moving. The chat exploded. "It's behind you. Mark, get out now. Oh God, it sees us too." Mark turned to late. A shadow loomed over him, featureless, shifting, wrong. His screen flashed one last message: "Welcome to the stream." And then the screen went black. The live stream ended. Mark was gone. Part 29, offline. But not go Nethy screen was black. The room was silent, but Mark's chair was still slowly spinning. His PC was off. The live stream had ended. Yet, in the darkness of his monitor, there was a reflection, a faint outline of a figure standing right where he had been sitting. Somewhere outside, a street lamp flickered. The chat replay was still accessible, flooded with panic. But Mark was no longer there to read it. And then a notification: "Mark's streaming is live now." But Mark hadn't returned. His account had been wiped clean. No past videos, no followers, only the live stream. Thousands joined instantly, expecting answers. The screen was dark, barely illuminated by the glow of a single old TV. The static hummed softly. A low, rhythmic breathing could be heard. The chat began flooding. "Mark? Dude, where are you? Is this a joke? Why is there someone in your room?" A shape moved on the screen, slow, deliberate. The static shifted, distorting slightly. A faint, whispering voice crackled through the speakers. "I see you." The camera glitched. The shape became clearer, but it wasn't Mark. It was sitting in his chair, staring at the screen. And then, suddenly, it turned its head, not towards the camera, not towards the room, but towards the viewer. The chat exploded in panic. "WHAT the hell is this? Why is it looking at me? Oh God, it's moving." The camera zoomed into fast to sharp. The face or whatever it was came into focus. Not a person, not human, just empty, endless darkness where the eyes should be. The breathing grew heavier. Then a single message appeared on the screen: "You're next." The stream cut to black, but before it ended, just for a fraction of a second, the reflection of the viewer's own room appeared on the screen. Watching, Part 30. The watching never stops screen stayed black, but the stream didn't end. The chat kept moving, messages piling up, viewers refreshing the page, hoping for an explanation. Then a whisper, soft at first, like a breath against a microphone, then louder, urgent, inhuman. "Do you see me?" The audio distorted, stretching unnaturally. Something shifted in the darkness, a shadow moving within a shadow. And then a webcam feed flickered to life. But it wasn't Mark's room. It was someone else's. A dimly lit bedroom. The glow of a computer screen. The faint outline of a person, sitting at their desk staring at their monitor. The chat froze. "Wait, is that? Whose room is that? That looks like my room. WTF?" The figure in the webcam didn't move. The screen flickered. Another feed appeared. A different room. A different viewer. A new victim. The entity was watching them. More feeds began flashing on the screen. One after another, darkened bedrooms, dimly glowing monitors, webcams showing unsuspecting viewers. The chat erupted in sheer terror. "That's my room. Holy SHT, turn off your PC, turn ID off now. How is ID streaming me?" The breathing returned deeper this time, layered, as if multiple voices were inhaling at once. Then the screen glitched, pixelating. A new message appeared in glowing red text: "I see you." A low, garbled laugh crackled through the speakers, and then the stream ended. But for those who had watched, the nightmare was only beginning, because their own webcams, their own screens had just turned on. Final part. The last viewer, the stream was over. The screen was black, but the terror had only begun. Some viewers slammed their laptops shut. Others yanked the power cords from their PCs. But the ones who hesitated, the ones who stared too long at their dark screens, they saw it. A reflection, not their own. The whispers hadn't stopped. The static hadn't faded. Somewhere, hidden, deep within the silence, there was still breathing. Then a notification: "Mark's streaming is live now." Viewers gasped. Some screamed. Others, unable to resist their morbid curiosity, clicked. The stream loaded instantly. No buffering, no delay. A webcam feed appeared. But this time it was theirs. Their own room. Their own face. Live. "What the hell? This is my camera. WTF is going on? Someone help me." The chat filled with panic, but no one could look away. Then the camera angle shifted, not by much, just a fraction of an inch, like someone or something was stepping closer. The breathing grew louder. a single hand appeared on the edge of the frame. Pale, motionless, too long. The chat exploded. "Don't turn around, it's right there, run. Now." The screen flickered, distorting violently. Then the text appeared. "You let me in." The camera feed cut to black, and in the silence that followed, just before the stream finally ended, there was a single, slow knock, right behind them.